As we learned during the course, architecture and urban planning involves several areas that must be considered for studying both the structures and the context of a city. Particularly in urbanism, there are social variables that generate new aspects that we as urban planners must evaluate. In urbanism, we attend 10 workshops. Both the first and second are related to environmental context. But it is in the second one where we study how the urban context is linked to the environment. It is in this workshop where I'm currently studying a suburban area called Santa Cruz del Este, located in the district of Baruta. It is the densest suburb in Venezuela with a range of 741 persons per hectare and a total population of 28,969 inhabitants. The first thing we do is to look at the topography basics to get an idea of what we have to deal with, starting by analyzing the curves to obtain the heights of the zone. It is called hypsometry, and then we can know the kind of landscape. Then we do mark the rivers and the natural drainages to see their influences in the terrain. Other thing that we determine by the curves are the inclinations. We look as well for data about the composition of the terrain and the processes linked to the kind of geology that it has. Once we have that information, we can analyze the stability of the terrain and determine the threats that are categorized into 3 types: flooding, mudslide, and earthquakes. Those types of threats can change depending on the material of the terrain. Sometimes the material is hard and stable like stone, or it could be weak such as sediment. Santa Cruz del Este is a place without a formal pattern. Its structure responds to an organic form induced by the topography, so the houses built are adapted to mountains. Most of them are brick-made, using cement as well because it is a cheap material for floors and walls covering, and steel bars for windows. The paths are mostly narrow, so it is clear that its inhabitant does not have a car and live, actually, with a lack of services such as a good transport system, trash recollection, and those which require a road connection. These kind of characteristics are the ones that get a placement into the informal category because they are improvised and self-produced. On the other hand, there are some houses that could be into the formal category in a single way, because some of them have foundations and have proper use of various materials such as glass for windows and wood for doors. But at the end, the needs such as water and electrical supply and their levels of satisfaction are mainly the aspects that make a placement formal or informal. The connection between the sector and the rest of the city is another point that we must consider in order to answer several questions. Why did people select that place to build? Why is it so hard to relocate them? In the case of Santa Cruz del Este, it was born in 1947. When a small community started building a kind of slum near the sprawl of formal urbanizations. Some of the reasons, like the access to commercial and industrial areas and the fact that formal urbanizations were already placed there, made things favorable for homeless people to start a new life. Then the sprawling got bigger, and so grew the difficulty for government to relocate such quantity of people. Remember that we are talking about 28,969 inhabitants. According with all those action points previously analyzed, we ought to develop a proposal, the target of which in this workshop too is limited to a conceptual intervention. In our proposal, my team and I looked for a terrain near the same sector that represents a powerful relocating area. Based on it, we made a conceptual design about buildings with 4 stories to make the most of the terrain. We cannot move all people, obviously, but then we did a prototype as well for the areas that could be used once people are evacuated from Santa Cruz del Este. Then, these areas could be used for recreation, green zones, and what the landscape allows. Likewise, we made a hypothetical road connection that can make other services reachable for people that will stay in the sector. For example, the government will build a vertical gym. It will be located at the low part of the area, and without a proper road it wouldn't benefit the high part of the slum.